Live from Studio P, it's the Sportsmonger Radio Show. Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Sportsmonger Radio Show. Front page report this time. We're going to talk about today's, all the week's big news in Pittsburgh sports. Starting with the mumps breakout that's ravaging the Penguins recently. We're going to talk about all the upheaval with Pitt, and there is a lot there. Losing a coach, firing an AD. We've got a chancellor who's looking for a new coach, technically while he's looking for an athletic director, which is odd, but I get it. There's a lot there. We'll get into it. The Steelers, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Jason Havelka. I am the author and co-owner of SportsMonger.com and formerly the PittsburghSportsmonger.com, which is all part of the website now. You can get there on sportsmonger.com/Pittsburgh. Anyways, there is a lot going on with local Pittsburgh sports, and we'll get into all of it. I would like to mention something. At the beginning of the season, football season, we're going to start with the Steelers. At the beginning of the football season, I said Steelers are a 500 team, slightly below. I've been saying that for 3 years. In 2 years, I was right. This year, the offense has made huge strides, and the defense is abysmal. The difference is the offense has been good enough in most games to win, and the defense has done enough on occasion to help. I still think they are they're not really a contender in my category or in my book. But I really don't know what a contender is anymore. There are a couple of really good teams, and then there are a bunch of everything else. And the Steelers are one of those bunches of everything else. They're pretty good, but they're not great. And the league's full of those teams. Led by, and right now, all the craze on the local talk shows are who's currently or who was the Steelers' MVP for the season. There's only 2 games left. So who is their MVP? Well, it's one of 3 people. It's Ben Roethlisberger, and we all know how much I have ranted and raved about him in the past on I haven't been his strongest supporter. He's having a good season. I admit it. He's having a good season. And he and Todd Haley have looked very good as of late. Much as people were ready to run him out of town earlier in the season, I was one of the guys who was very frustrated with Ben. But he's having a good season. You can't take it away from him. He's a really good quarterback. He's baffling to me how good he can be against good teams and how horrific he can be against bad teams. With that said, so you got Ben, you got Le'Veon Bell, who's quite frankly probably their most impressive player all around, and then you've got Antonio Brown, who is lights out. The guy doesn't. He's. I don't know. The motor never stops. He always finds the soft spot. You talk about the soft spot in the zones, or things that Hines Ward was really good at, is what Antonio Brown's really good at. Similar builds. The difference is this: Brown's really fast, whereas Hines Ward had average speed. He was just a great route runner, and he understood defense better than most wide receivers out there. And probably because he played a little quarterback and he really gets it. Antonio Brown, on the other hand, really gets it. He's a smart guy when it comes to football. I know him not 1 ounce outside the game, so I'm not going to sit here and speculate on his intelligence outside. But as far as football goes, the guy's got a football acumen and a football IQ that's fairly high. So you can't take any of what he's accomplished away from him. Plus, he's been the MVP on the team the last 2 seasons. So, but this year it's a little different. You got Ben setting records for the team. Le'Veon Bell doing things that hasn't been done since, I don't know, Walter Payton was alive. So, or Walter Payton was running. So, who knows? It's a tough. It's one of the toughest calls I've ever had or thought of making. With that said, if gun to my head, it's Le'Veon Bell. The guy makes his team better. He allows Ben to make those throws because you have to worry about him. He's not somebody that you. He's somebody you have to game plan for. But not just run it. Not just run it. The guy's a beast as a pass catching receiver. I mean, he's a beast. He's got over 1,200 yards. He's got over 2,000 yards from scrimmage this season. That's impressive. Oh, and over 1,200 running. The other ones are coming in the passing game, so that's when you got a running back that can do all of that, you just shut him down, bottle him up, shut him down. Doesn't matter. He's going to catch balls out of the backfield. He's going to catch them downfield. He's going to make you miss. He's that good, and if he can't make you miss, he's going to run your butt over, which is what makes him what he is. Ben to me is a close second. It's been that kind of year for him. He had 2 of the best games I've ever seen a quarterback have, and 2 back-to-back. And there were games where he wasn't just throwing a ball with accuracy. I mean, he was literally dropping the ball in from parts unknown. I mean, some of those passes were so good it was sickening. So that's why I say he's a close second, but I think in my mind you have to put Le'Veon Bell there. He's the one who makes this team that much better. Before it was Brown doing it on his own with no running game. Now the guy's got a running game. Just think how good this offense could be in years to come. With that said, the defense is horrendous and old. It's still old, I should say. We're seeing players like Troy Polamalu, who he's impossible not to like and not to root for. With that said, he is aging at a rapid pace right in front of our eyes. He can't cover anybody. Over time, we all gain weight and our bodies change. But he wasn't a big guy before, and he's slowly turning into one. I mean, his size. I mean, he's gotten bigger, and I don't know if it's from him working out. I don't know if it's just him getting a little older and the body type is changing and he's eating more. I have no idea. He's not fat. I'm definitely not accusing him of that, but he does not have the body that he used to have. And part of me thinks that is cutting down on on the speed element of his game. what made him so good was being able to be anywhere on the field at any given time, and you don't have that anymore because he lacks that speed. He can still make a good hit. He still does some ridiculous things at the line of scrimmage. And what I mean by ridiculous now is wow, it's like, oh God, he did that. It's just, it's just not there anymore. And Ike Taylor can no longer cover. I think you could see him as a safety in the near future for another year. But then he's going to leave and be gone. And Brett Kiesel came back for a year, and you just can't. He was really good for a couple of games. I mean, he really held his own and didn't show a lot of that age that is on him. With that said, season-ending injury, you wonder if it's career-ending. Could be. You have a defensive. You got linebackers that are young, and are probably talented, but you don't get to notice them as much as you'd like. You don't get to notice them as much as you'd like because the defensive line isn't nearly as good as what it used to be. Nowhere near as good as it used to be. The defensive linemen do not suck up blockers, and because of that, your linebackers, they don't get to run free or get to show much. James Harrison came back for a few games, and then he got injured. And though he should be back soon, probably this week is what I'm hearing, by all accounts. He's been a breath of fresh air as far as linebackers go. His motor is still primed. Nothing like he used to be, but his game has not fallen off like the others that I mentioned. Nothing like the others that I mentioned. Ryan Shazier's been a nice addition, though he can't stay on the field health-wise. They have pieces in the defense, but as a whole, there are big holes. And until those get filled, that will not be a complete football team. And it's going to take more than just one draft to do it. It's going to take a lot more. The offensive line has gotten better on the offensive side of the ball, which is keeping Ben more upright. There are less sacks caused by the offensive line and more, and mostly sacks caused by Ben. Before, it was a nice mix, probably more towards the offensive line giving up sacks as opposed to Ben doing it all the time. But this year, you could probably say the bulk of the sacks have come because Ben's trying to make a play. He's holding onto the ball way too damn long, which is it's him, it's his trade, it's what he does, and it's what he'll always do. To say that he won't do it is, well, it would be foolish. They have a big game this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. A win and they're in to the playoffs. A win gives them a 10-5 record going into the final game of the season against the Cincinnati Bengals. I am not looking past the Chiefs. The Chiefs have a good football team. Andy Reid's a good coach. He knows the Steelers. He's used to playing them in preseason games every single season when he was with the Phillies, with the Eagles. He knows the Steelers. He knows them backwards and frontwards. He gets it. So he's not going to be surprised by anything he sees. I would expect it to be a difficult game, but I would expect it to be a game the Steelers can win. Will they win? I don't know. You can check. I guess I can make a couple of picks today. I wasn't planning on it. You can check the blog, though. I normally do a weekly pick. Friday football Friday pick sure to go wrong. Since the college football season ended, I stopped doing it. With that said, we've got the bowl season coming up, so I'll probably put in one of my final pick posts this week. And as far as the Steelers go, let's just pick against the spread. There's just no use not to. I've been doing it all season, and unsuccessfully, quite unsuccessfully, I might add, very unsuccessfully. The Steelers are a 3-point favorite at home. It is a pick'em. Well, nearly a pick'em. They're going up against Jamal Charles. The Steelers' run defense is lacking. I'm thinking the Steelers are going to cover. Probably win by 4 or 5. 26-21 is the way I see this game. 26-21. The over-under is 46.5. Those guys out in Vegas normally don't get this wrong, and they are not in it to lose. That's probably very accurate. That's why I see it as 26-21. Steelers do win, clinch a playoff berth, and move to 10-5 on the season. Now, as we all know, there's been it's a horribly bad transition, but one of the reasons I started blogging to begin with, started writing my original website. I've been a huge Pitt fan my entire life. I grew up in a family of nothing but West Virginia fans. They hated Pitt with a passion. I heard under the armpit and the whole crap, and I heard it for years. When I was under 10, I used to cry about it. Now I just don't care, but 30 years will do that to you. But one of the reasons I did it was because of Pitt. I love the Panthers. I follow them hard. I promote them as much as I can within my posts, but I try to be fair too. I try to call a spade when I get the opportunity. If you followed me for a long time, I was very hard on Tino Sinceri because he's a lousy quarterback. If you're bad, I'm going to rip on you. If you're bad, that's just how it is. And it's not you're bad personally. Tino is a perfectly good human. He's playing up in the Canadian Football League right now. He's a good guy. He's just not a great quarterback. He never was. So, he had a legacy. That Sinceri name carries a lot of clout in college football. So therefore, I think that's what gave him his 3 or 4 star rating from different services. And the ones that had him at 3 stars were a lot closer than the ones that had him at 4. With that being said, the reason I wrote this, started this whole thing, is because of the Panthers. And one of the great rituals now that we get to live through is Pitt lost their football coach. It was going to happen eventually, but Paul Chryst wasn't going to leave Pitt for Michigan State or somebody like that. He just wasn't going to do it. He's an honorable guy, and those were not. There were a lot of jobs that he just wouldn't leave Pitt for. The one job that he would came open twice. Once a year after he left Wisconsin, and then 2 years after that, it came open again. And I think Barry Alvarez made one phone call. I don't think there was anybody else that was even thought of. Barry Alvarez, for all that don't know, is the AD there. He made the call, and I'm pretty sure before that before Barry said a word, Paul Chryst said yes. And I don't blame him for it. He grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. He knows everybody there. He talked about having a paper route and delivering papers inside of the stadium and the whole deal. I mean, and if you watched the press conference, you saw a guy that couldn't have been more at home in your life. I mean, that was... Paul Chryst was entertaining to listen to. And I can tell you, never before at Pitt has he been entertaining to listen to. Paul Chryst is a great offensive mind. I don't know how great of a head coach he is, but he's a great offensive mind. And I can tell you, without pulling any punches, he was never a good listen here. He didn't have those type of relationships with anybody here. He's a very Holmesy kind of guy. He's the guy. He's your next door neighbor. That's what he reminds you of. He's a good guy. Cares about his players. Genuinely cares. And you saw that if you followed social media while at 7 o'clock on Thursday night when all this stuff was going down, or Wednesday night when all this stuff was going down. If you would have been following Twitter, you would have realized. The fact is, the Pitt players loved him. Loved him. He left on good terms. Very good terms. And they wish nothing but the best for him. But Pitt made one of the greatest moves they've made in years that night. Right when Paul Chryst was taking the stage, they made the announcement that Steve Peterson, athletic director at Pittsburgh for the last 13 years, it's been way too long, I think, was no longer going to be the athletic director. They kind of stole the headline from him. And Pitt fans rejoiced. They sang in the streets. They celebrated joyfully. Now, I don't know Steve Peterson, and I don't wish for anybody's demise. So please, don't read that into what I'm saying. What I am saying is there were enough forces behind the situation that were tired of his shenanigans. The fact that he's kept he helped Pitt get into the ACC. He wasn't the chief reason it happened. They came to us. By all accounts, it sounds like they came to Pitt, and Pitt didn't go to the ACC. A lot of things aligned. He took advantage of them and made things happen. Good. Great for him. Wonderful. He did good things. He had the Peterson Event Center built. Even though football fans in Pittsburgh, the true Pitt football fans, hate that place. Hate it. Jamie Dixon will never do right. That basketball program will never do right because it is sitting where the football stadium used to. And that angers a lot of people. That angers a lot of people. A lot of people that would have loved to have seen a football stadium on campus at the University of Pittsburgh. Well, it wasn't going to happen. Pitt did what it had to do when it happened. With the opening of Heinz Field coming up, they knew they had an opportunity there. And they also knew that they could spend the money and build a beautiful, all-encompassing basketball stadium that could be used for so many other things. A football stadium can be used for one thing. 2. Let's don't pull punches. 2 things. Football and, soccer, of course, but track and field, maybe. Whatever. So, Sorry about that. But Pitt football fans will never be happy again because there's no football stadium for them not to go to on the campus. And that's something else. Huge Pitt fan I am, and Pitt supporter. I didn't get to go to many of the games. I haven't for a few years. I had season tickets at the end of Pitt Stadium and all during the Three Rivers Stadium and the first and second year Heinz Field. And then we had kids. That went away. Tough. That's just, some things take precedence. With that said, it didn't matter how much they wanted Pitt Stadium. I remember games, seasons where they were pretty good. Not great, pretty good. And unless the other team brought 10,000 fans, that stadium was empty. Similar to what Heinz Field is. Pitt legitimately can get 45 to 50,000 fans in a game when they're winning. That's legitimate. That can happen. That does happen when they're winning. The problem is they just haven't won enough. And if they could win more, the fans will come back. The first thing that's going to drive fans back, though, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, is the fact that they took out Steve Peterson. That is going to be a huge contributor to Pitt selling tickets in that stadium. I think that itself could bring an extra couple of thousand fans a game. Fans are sick. We're sick of Steve Peterson and how many bad decisions were made with regards to that football program. You can only make so many wrong moves, and Paul Chryst wasn't a wrong move. The problem is it wasn't a right move. If we look back, he did settle the program from a couple of years of turmoil that, by the way, Steve Peterson caused. They caused. I'm not a huge fan of Dave Wannstedt as a head coach. Not a huge fan at all. But the fact is, he wasn't winning enough. He wasn't. He was squandering good opportunities because he's a terrible game day coach. He just is. He's awful. So they fire him and they bring in a guy that, within 3 months is removed because of an off the field situation. And then they bring in, it's just one problem after the other. Then they bring in speed, and explosive power. Todd Graham, who can't wait to come to Pitt. But in retrospect, if you hear him interviewed now, he said it from the very beginning, right when he took the job, that he probably shouldn't have. He didn't feel like the program was where he should have gone. The money was good, so he left. And he came in, blew out within a year, tore the program to shreds, and left a burning pile of whatever. And that's when Paul Chryst came along, coached for 3 years, and he did add some stability. Regardless what you hear other local personalities on the radio tell you, writers, whatever, he did provide stability. Did he right the ship? I got rid of some bad eggs. There's no doubt about that. Pitt doesn't have nearly as many players in the news right now as they did when Dave Wannstedt was around. That was a problem all the time. They got kids that want to be there. And it's because of that genuineness that Paul Chryst brought. That was the reason the kids came. And now he's in Wisconsin. We have a brand new chancellor, and the chancellor came in. I say we, as Pitt fans or as Pitt community of fans and supporters. Pitt has a new chancellor. He comes in, basically cleans house. Says, Steve Peterson, you're out. I don't care what we need to pay you or write you a check for as you leave, which reportedly is upwards of $2 million, though Pitt is completely denying it, and I don't understand why. I think enough people would stand out and panhandle and donate if they knew they could get him out of town or get him out of that position. Now we are hearing, now you're hearing many names for the Pitt job, though some are more difficult than others. Joe Rudolph, who was the offensive coordinator for Pitt during the Christ years, is the interim coach. He'll probably end up being Paul Christ's offensive coordinator if he does not get the Pitt job. I don't suspect he will, though it is possible. He is considered a very good offensive coordinator and a good mind. He's a pretty good recruiter too. But the problem is if he would have done some of the good things that you've seen him do at, say, Arkansas. This is what I brought up yesterday to another cohort of mine. If you'd have done that at Arkansas and people would have noticed that from afar, wow, look what he's doing at Arkansas, at an SEC school, he'd be highly sought after. But because he was doing it at Pitt, Pitt's under the radar right now. You know, they really are. It's unfortunate and it's frustrating for me because I want them to be relevant so badly. And as a Pitt fan, you want them to win, but their relevance is limited right now. So, with that said, he is a possibility, though I don't think it's going to happen. Greg Schiano is also a possibility, which I pray doesn't happen. Bo Pelini, I thought, was going to be an option, but Bo Pelini is not going to happen because he is now at Youngstown State. And as we find out, he likes to call the athletic director from Nebraska bad names, and you can do your own research on that. Reportedly, initially, Tom Bradley had inquired about it. I am a huge Tom Bradley supporter. I think he is a perfect fit at the university. He likes Pittsburgh. He's a former Penn State guy. He has no want to go back to Penn State. He is a great coach. He knows how to surround himself with good people. He's a good defensive mind. He's a great recruiter. He is the perfect addition to this team. I don't understand what the holdup is. So many young people are speaking up saying, oh, we want to get, the next up-and-comer. The problem is a lot of these up-and-comers, and I don't mind saying it, a lot of these up-and-comers love, these crazy new style offenses, and I don't think what Paul Christ has recruited for the past 3 years fits that mold. Now, you don't pick your coach on what kind of talent you have there right now. But the fact is, this Pitt team isn't far away. Do you sacrifice next year? I don't know if you do or not. I don't know. And if you pick up a guy like Bradley, not only do you not have to sacrifice next year, you don't have to sacrifice in the years in the future. And that's what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. There's also the defensive coordinator of Michigan State, Pat Narduzzi, Mario Cristobal, is an option. And, this guy doesn't get brought up enough to me, but somebody in the same ilk as Tom Bradley would be Bud Foster from Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, year in and year out, has a really good defense. They're built around it. And Bud Foster's been the architect of that defense for years and years. But very similar to Tom Bradley, whereas Tom was at Penn State for 145 years, Bud Foster's been with Frank Beamer for 145 years. So sometimes those guys stay in those programs too long. and they become less. They become less. They become worrisome for their next hire. Or as soon as Frank Beamer leaves, is he going to jump ship and go to Virginia Tech? Well, probably. And I think initially that's what held Tom Bradley back. But you just don't, with all the fallout from Penn State in the last several years, I just don't see that anymore. I just don't. So there are a few names out there. There are some things getting some legs. But more than that now is an athletic director. And do you hire the athletic director before you hire the coach? A lot of people say, the athletic director has to hire the coach. And a lot of people say, no, you don't. No, you don't. An assistant athletic director hired Jamie Dixon. So I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know how it works. I know how it should work. Problem is the Panthers are in a tough spot. As far as athletic directors. Now, they got a couple of guys on. They got a guy on staff, I think, that could fill the role very nicely, E.J. Borghetti. He's a Pitt guy. He loves the university. I don't think there's anybody on the planet who loves the university more than him. He's a Pitt guy. He gets the ins and outs. He's been there forever. I think he would be a great choice. Whether they go outside and look for a new mind, a new big name, I don't know. But if they wanted to stay in-house, that's the guy I would pick. In the meantime, Randy Jewell has been named the acting AD, and he's going to lead the coaching surf. Randy Jewell knows more about science and student affairs than he does about sports or finding a head coach. But what Pitt needs to do in my mind is whoever the AD is, he has to be a good businessman. Has to be. Has to figure out a way to sell that university, their athletic program. Has to be able to figure that out. You got to come up with somebody who's got some great ideas and doesn't mind stepping out on the edge and doing things, maybe off kilter a bit. This was a quote from Chancellor Patrick Gallagher. On behalf of the entire Pitt community, I would like to thank Paul Chryst for his efforts for the past 3 years. He leaves a program with a strong foundation for future success, both on and off the field. Very true. Before beginning a robust national coaching search, Steve Peterson and I spoke this morning, and we mutually agreed that this would be an appropriate time to make a change in the athletic department leadership. AKA, you messed up again, get out of town. Maybe that's not how it went, but jokingly, that's how I saw it. And it's clear that Patrick Gallagher, the new chancellor, wants to put his stamp on that athletic program. Whoever the new athletic director that comes in needs to warm himself up to Jamie Dixon also, because you do not want to see that walk out the door. I know there are some Pitt basketball fans who completely and totally disagree with me, and I will tell you that if you do, I don't care, you are wrong. You are flat wrong. I remember years when they weren't relevant. I remember years when they weren't close. I remember those. I lived through them, and they were miserable. I like being competitive to good every single season. Maybe they don't make the runs at the national championship every year, but they have in the past. They have in the past and will in the future. When I think of Pitt fans with regards to Pitt basketball fans, with regards to in regards to their thoughts on Jamie Dixon. A line from a Bruce Springsteen song sticks out for me, and it goes something like, and I'm sure this was in a book or something else before, but to me that there's never been a more poignant line, and it goes something like, "Poor man wants to be rich, and rich man wants to be king." The fact is, the Pitt fan, who was the poor man for a long time, became a rich man, and has been a rich man for a very long time, and now he's no longer happy being rich. He wants to be king, and being king is wonderful, I'm sure. I've never been a king. I'm just betting. Mel Brooks used to walk around and say, yeah, it's good to be the king. And he's probably not too far off. But I say this, Pitt fans, please be careful what you wish for. In this particular situation, be careful what you wish for. Anyways, so those are some thoughts and some ideas on what's going on in Pittsburgh sports. We covered the Steelers, we covered the Penguins, we covered the Panthers in 40 and under 45 minutes, which is good for me. I'm going to do my best to continue doing this more on a weekly basis, as opposed to doing it once every couple of months. It's been so difficult managing the sites and doing the many things that I am doing now to getting to do this, but I miss it. I can tell you that I miss it. You may not miss me, but I miss this. So on that note, I'm going to check out kind of the way I used to. I'm sure you remember. We'll see you again next week on the Sportsmonger Radio Show.
Run by a river. These rails go on for miles and miles. It's raining, I start to shiver, and this hunger seems so in style. Work these days is hard to come by, and a home's a dream I had as a child. As a child, I'll find shelter in a boxcar. Keep the rain and the cold off of me. Thank God I'm still moving to a haven just across the border. Thank God I'm still breathing in the vacuum of a new world order. Thank God I'm still smiling, find a friend wherever there is cooking. Thank God I'm still feeling, find my soul whenever I'm not looking. Right now I'm looking for a shelter and a boxcar.